We're going to turn now to America, where 2 years ago today, a black teenager named Trayvon Martin became the latest face of what many called racial injustice in America. Martin was unarmed, except with a hoodie, when he was shot and killed by a neighborhood watch volunteer in Florida. The assailant, George Zimmerman, a white Hispanic, claimed self-defense, and the jury agreed, pronouncing him not guilty. Of course, Trayvon's case was hardly the first or the last such tragedy. Just 2 weeks ago, again in Florida, a similar situation. A white man escaped the most serious charge of first-degree murder after he shot and killed a black teenager in a dispute over loud music, of all things. Americans like to think their justice is blind, but the numbers tell a different story. And joining me now, a lawyer on the front lines of this struggle for real justice, Brian Stevenson. He joins me now from New York. Mr. Stevenson, welcome. You have said...
Thank you.
You have said that it is better in some ways to be rich and guilty in America than poor and innocent. Tell me what you mean.
Yes, we have a criminal justice system that is very wealth sensitive. And the truth of it is that without money, without resources, our system does not protect the innocent. And it certainly doesn't protect people who are burdened with the presumption of guilt that many people of color in America have been saddled with. And that's the reason why we see so much inequality, so much unjust outcomes in our criminal justice system.
And so much frustration on the streets of the United States, particularly with this, what you've termed as mass incarceration. I want to put up a statistic and have you discuss the color barriers between who's arrested and incarcerated and who's not. White and black Americans, for instance, are deemed to use marijuana at about the same rate, but black Americans are 4 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession. That is the ACLU in the United States. Tell me about that. Tell me about crime and punishment and what is shaping up in American jails.
Yeah, the country has really changed in the last 50 years. In 1972, we had 300,000 people in jails and prisons in America. Today, we have 2.3 million. The United States now has the highest rate of incarceration in the world. Much of that has been achieved through targeted prosecutions of people of color. The Bureau of Justice reports that 1 in 3 black male babies born in 2001 is expected to go to jail or prison. There are states and communities where 50–60% of young men of color are in jail, in prison, on probation or parole. Many of these young people have not committed violent crimes or done anything serious. They're there for drug crimes or for property crimes, and many are innocent there because of what I call this presumption of guilt. And I think we have to understand that these phenomena reflect a larger failure in American society to deal with the history of racial inequality and racial injustice. I mean, this country is burdened with the legacy of slavery. We enslaved Africans for over 2 centuries. From the end of Reconstruction until World War II, we terrorized and traumatized black people in America with lynchings and violence and racial hatred. Then we legalized racial subordination through our laws and created Jim Crow, segregation that was deeply humiliating and demonizing. And because we never told the truth about all of those problems and all the difficulties that created, we've never had the moment of truth and reconciliation that every country requires if it's going to deal with decades of human rights abuses. Well, we didn't have what South Africa went through. That's
actually what I was going to ask you. There hasn't been a truth and reconciliation like in South Africa. There hasn't been a reconciliation process and a democratization process like happened in Germany after World War II.
I think that's exactly right. And it's because of that that we're very arrogant about our ability to avoid racial inequality when, in fact, we're very prone to it. You know, in Germany, there was this deep reflection that we could never again repeat the mistakes of the Holocaust. And you go to Germany and you see the landscape is really just populated with all of the reminders and memorials and markers. And there is within the German consciousness a deep resolve to never again engage in that kind of systematic killing. And I think about that because I would be outraged if I saw the nation state of Germany today putting people in gas chambers, and I'd certainly be outraged if they were disproportionately Jewish. Yet in America, where we have lynched and victimized thousands of African Americans throughout our history, we still have a death penalty system that operates in a very racially skewed manner. And it's an absence of humility. It's an absence of confronting our obligation to do justice, to reconcile ourselves to a history that I think is very much a part of this. We just put up markers reflecting slavery in my community in Montgomery, Alabama, because there was nothing there before.
And there are, we see the figures. I mean, African Americans are incarcerated nearly 6 times the rate of whites. What does this mass incarceration do to the identity of America today?
Oh, I think it has a profound impact. I mean, in many states, you permanently lose the right to vote. And we're actually celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Movement, the Voting Rights Act. And we're doing it at a time where in many states, my state of Alabama, 34% of the black male population has permanently lost the right to vote as a result of a criminal conviction. And so it is absolutely disrupting the opportunities for America to become a full democracy. And that's why I think this issue is a pressing issue. Incidents like Trayvon Martin and the other issues that you mentioned are deeply disturbing in communities of color because they reflect a continuing disregard for valuing people of color in the way that we have to if we're going to recover from our history of racial inequality and racial injustice.
Bryan Stevenson, thank you very much indeed for joining me tonight.
My pleasure.